Chris? Hear me? Yep. Good. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the July 24th, 2023. I'd like to open the Franklin Planning Board meeting. This meeting is audio and videotaped, and as well as on Zoom. And the Zoom call-in number is 312-626-6799 with the meeting number 849-652-32576. Our first order of business, we'll take care of general business first. Be a presentation of the open space and recreation draft under general business. If Amy, well,
Yeah,
she's muted, I think.
Yep, so I'll start. We have our conservation agent, Brika Lai, on, that's gonna give a quick presentation on the open space plan, and from there, they're just looking for support from the planning board. I did provide a letter that was a link to the draft, so if anyone has any chance to review the draft, that would be great.
Okay.
And then I'll turn it over to Brika Lai.
Cool beans. Thanks, Amy. I am going to, oh my gosh, I'm going to share my screen. And I promise I will keep it brief. I know you have quite an agenda today. So maybe you've seen this before. I presented it everywhere, so apologies if it is a rinse and repeat for you. So these slides are very brief. There's only about 8. I figured I'd introduce the open space plan, tell you about our civic engagement process, where we are in the process now, which is seeking a review letter from the planning board, and then just identify the goals that Conservation Commission has identified through that civic engagement process. So what is the open space and recreation plan? Essentially, it's a plan for plans. So it's a very high level look at what the town can do to facilitate open space and recreation acquisitions or support facilities where community members think that we could do better, where we're already doing great. It's also a source of funding, so towns that have a current OSRP, Open Space and Rec Plan, are eligible for grants for up to 7 years. And then I think it's also a really great way to tap into what the community members want. You know, it's a great way for them to be able to provide feedback to the town. So overview and benefits, this is a little redundant, but again, it provides a snapshot of community priorities, it guides policy decisions, it helps maintain public spaces and rec facilities, protects open spaces, biodiversity, source of funding, and improves public access awareness. So there are 11 sections of the open space plan. A lot of them are technical in nature. Plan summary, intro, community setting. So this is your regional context, community history, demographics. I've received a lot of great feedback on section 3 of the open space plan, especially for people that have lived in Franklin for their whole life. They've mentioned they really like learning more about how Franklin came to be. Environmental inventory and analysis, that's where I come in. Inventory of lands, community vision, analysis of needs, goals and objectives, action plan, public comments, references. So this is our update process. It's taken us about, oh goodness, I'm speaking in this. One moment. Okay, I don't know how to stop that. So instead of going back to that, so you don't hear me doubly speaking, I'll just let you know about our civic engagement process. So it's been about 8 months. We've had well over 20 public hearings. Those are led by the Conservation Commission, and they were before every regularly scheduled public hearing. I'm sure you've all received the emails that I've put out in some form or another, at least your chair has. We've also held 3 public hearings for the open space plan itself throughout the 8 months to provide or to garner citizen engagement feedback. We've had over 100 stakeholder groups that we've identified and sought information from to help guide the vision of the open space plan. We had a month-long comment period. We had a citizen engagement survey, and now we're to the point that we are seeking planning board, conservation, and town council review letters to be able to include in that plan so we can submit to the state. We have already submitted the draft plan to DCR and MAPC for review letters, but I'm still waiting to receive those back. So at the top here, our survey is closed. We've already received our citizen engagement feedback. We need a planning board comment letter. I put within 30 days because we present to town council on August 16th. Figured I'd give you at least 2 meetings. So that's 1 meeting to discuss, 1 meeting to actually have a draft plan. If you need a little bit more, that's okay. But I would prefer not to move it past September so we can get this into the state and we can get it approved, and then we can go on to the master plan process. So again, this is draft plan only. The 5 to 7 year action plan, which is section 9, and the draft report is still under revision. You can read it. It is drafted, but it is not in complete. We are still waiting for these comment letters to come back. And then for brevity, I just put it in here that I'm available to discuss the survey results if you would so choose, but I know you have a long agenda, so I'm just going to keep moving through. So section 8, which are the overall identified goals in no specific order of the 2023 open space plan. So these are goals that Conservation Commission identified through that civic engagement process. So the first one is increase public awareness of open space and rec opportunities. So for example, maps and directional signage at our locations, educational and outdoor programs, assisting schools and other organizations in STEM programs, and then even creating a Friends of Franklin Conservation volunteer group or stewards. Second goal, promote, preserve, and enhance existing town open space resources. So this is us. This is what we do from a planning board and conservation commission perspective. So these objectives, or the objectives for this plan, include, and I'm reading, I'm sorry, creating a plan for prioritization and acquisition of Chapter 61 and ensuring the availability of adequate CPA and open space funding, prioritize land owned by the town and managed by the Conservation Commission for development of resiliency improvement, trails, walking paths, increased public access, master plan for the Maple Hill and Schmidt's parcel, which I'm sure we are all well aware of. The third goal, which is maximizing rec opportunities to meet the community's evolving needs by maintaining a current inventory and providing new facilities. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then protecting natural, historical, and cultural resources and maintaining Franklin's New England character, which is absolutely 100% on the planning board to do. So objectives for that include feasibility of access points, connectivity, working with DCR to facilitate those access points, and access opportunities for development of youth, and then preserve and protect the town's water resources. So that's, again, just utilizing those CPA funds to protect ecosystems that are within water resource districts or developing the bylaws, XYZ. And then overall, it is written within the plan throughout. It's not explicitly identified here, but accessibility was a really, really big thing that the Conservation Commission and conservation staff, myself, identified. We had a substantial outpouring of support and requests for accessibility throughout our open space and rec areas, and some of which we have actually already been able to check off just throughout the open space process. So that does have a really big focus in the 2023 open space plan. So to tie it all together, Amy has provided you the open space plan. I encourage all of you to read it, or at least your chair, please and thank you, to provide a letter of support. Please include recommendations. Please include anything you'd like to see in there. I will make sure that it actually gets included in the open space plan. And then any comments that you do provide, I believe in full transparency, and it is a requirement of the open space plan anyways, or process anyways. So they will all be included at the back of the plan for everybody from Timbuktu to Franklin to see. So I think that's very short. In 13 minutes, I was able to wrap it all up for you. So I am available for questions if anybody has them.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll go to the board. Is everybody, I haven't finished going through it myself, but is everybody pretty comfortable with what they see already?
I'm good.
I don't know if you wanted to move it along. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment, I think, having looked at it myself, I'm really impressed with the amount of work that was done and just super glad to see that we have so many new places for folks in town to go, and that's really great and a great effort by the town to make that happen. So I'm
Okay.
fine with moving it along unless others want more time.
I mean, I'm comfortable with what I've already seen, so I'm not sure you could make a motion to move it along to make the approval to town council.
Make a motion to recommend the open space plan as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great work.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
Good work, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Goodbye. Have a good night.
Take care. All right, our next line of business would be an endorsement for 230 East Central Street. Amy, if you want to give us a quick run through, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. They were in front of us actually a few weeks ago, requesting endorsement. There was a few more things that the planning board had requested. They wanted to know that, they were not gonna be building on Hill Ave. They will also, I know that Beta wanted to see that they could meet the test pits that were required, by the planning board. They've provided us, the site plans, they've provided the letter from the applicant indicating there's no disturbance on Hill Ave. They provided the soil map and the geotechnical investigation. So they are here tonight for endorsement.
Okay. I'll go to Gary first. Gary, I know there was some conversation. Are you comfortable with what we've seen and what's been put in front of us for additional paperwork based on what we're looking for?
At this point, yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I am comfortable. I'm not sure if the ledge elevation is correct. They might not get their footing thicknesses the way they got them, but I don't think it's gonna affect the wall at all.
Okay,
And as I stated, I think it's time to
let it go.
pass it
Yeah,
along.
yeah, no, we just wanted to make sure we crossed our Ts, dotted our Is. How about Mike from DPW? Are you comfortable with everything we've seen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't review the endorsed plans. I know what Beta had taken a look at them, but I didn't have any issues outstanding.
Okay. I just want to make one comment. There is a letter from the owners. I was wishing it was from an attorney, but, about the Hill Ave, but that's part of the documentation about working, without the zone. I'd also like to just make sure is, all the data from the testing reports it's tied back to the original drawings, and there is a note on there, deferring back to it too.
It is.
And if I'm correct, Amanda, you didn't want it on the drawing, so as long as it's tied, the retaining wall's tied to the geotech reports, and as long as that's on for record, so when you do your sit-down with the pre-construction, I want to make sure that's definitely spoken and made a point. Okay?
Everything's connected.
Okay, all right. Anybody else on the board have any questions or comments? This is just for an endorsement anyway, so.
No, I'm good.
Make a motion to endorse 230 East Central Street.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, next line item would be for acceptance of meeting minutes. If everybody's read meeting minutes from June 5th, 2023. Any additions or deletions? If not, make a motion to approve June 5th meeting minutes. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Also for June 26th, 2023 meeting minutes, if anybody has any additions, deletions, if not, I make a motion to approve the June 26th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our next item of business will be it's a public hearing, initial public hearing for zoning bylaw amendments, 223-898. The attachment 9, single family and well as commercial, and 23-899, the marijuana overlay district. If I can defer to Amy on the amendments, please. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I get a waiver of the public
We'll
hearing?
make a motion to waive the public hearing reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So recently, we've had a lot of changes done to the zoning to kind of accommodate some more housing, also accommodate the MBTA 3A communities. We've changed some of the square footage of what's allowable to be buildable, so this is kind of cleaning up some of that. With the GR5, we actually increased the requirement for the square footage, but the impervious was very low. We started with a 30% GR5 for structures and 35% for plus paving. The DPCD had recommended increasing that to 35% for structures and 45% for structures plus paving. Having gone through the Economic Development Committee, they wanted to see a larger increase of 45% for structures and 55% for structures plus paving. This is go in front of Town Council, and Town Council has recommended it has the general residential 5 for the 45% of structures and 55% for structures plus paving. I can move on to marijuana, but I think maybe we go through this zoning and then we can do the other
Sure.
zoning amendment.
Okay. I'll go to anybody on the board have any questions, comments? Beth?
Yeah. So I appreciate the EDC members looking at this and wanting to make an increase beyond what was recommended by staff at 35 you recommended 35 and they suggested 45 for structures, and then 45 for structures plus paving and 55 for their recommendation.
Correct.
I personally would like to see it stay as what the planning department recommended, because I think there was a lot of thought and input put behind that and reasoning, and I understand that the EDC is suggesting an increase even greater than what was recommended by the planning department because they want to see the full potential of being able to maximize GR5 development. However, you guys are the professionals and the staff that has reviewed it for, I'm sure, many hours and came up with a number that you thought was reasonable. So in my opinion, sticking with our professional staff has said versus increasing it arbitrarily to 45 and 55, just because it looks good as a larger percentage. You can always increase after the fact if you're finding nothing's happening, but I think let's stay with what is recommended by our staff.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Is there any, Amy, is there any plan to increase the impervious coverage in other areas in an effort to improve, increase housing, which I guess this is probably an effort to, right?
At this time, there has not been any discussion to increase impervious.
Yeah, so I guess what I would warn everyone about is that when you increase impervious area like this only in one district, you're kind of shoving all the increased density in one area. So you're kind of taxing an area that's already got a pretty high density. So I would, if we're going to look at this, I would encourage looking at increasing the impervious coverage everywhere in town in an effort to improve density, not just shove it in off of Central Street.
Thank you, Jay. Rick? Jen?
Through the chair.
Question?
I think that's a scary blanket statement, because then it would have significant impacts on stormwater, drainage, et cetera, et cetera. I'm in the same camp as Beth here. I appreciate the thought that has gone behind all of this, and would definitely appreciate or align with our staff's professional recommendations of increasing from 30 to 35 and 35 to 45 respectively. I guess one question is in coming up with these percentages, was there any analysis done related to, through the chair question to Amy and staff, to the impact on storm water and drainage overall, like as an available area? If we increase our impervious by X amount, it's gonna have this effect on, you know, X, Y, and Z from that standpoint, or was it strictly based on trying to increase density of housing?
Through the chair, they will have to comply with any stormwater requirements that we have. So any new development or additional developments or add-ons or rebuilds, they would have to comply with existing stormwater management that's in place right now. So it was more to allow for more density, I think, than anything else, and whoever the owner or applicant would have to comply with the existing stormwater.
Go to Mike.
Mr. Chairman, just to, I just want to touch on that. Under the current bylaws, the stormwater bylaws, basically they take effect on any developments over 1 acre. So on a single-family house for small lots than 1 acre, they don't, the stormwater bylaw doesn't necessarily come into context with that. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, good.
Through the chair, just one quick comment question. It's tough to make an informed decision without knowing what the process that the EDC went through and what documentation they looked at to come up with their numbers. I mean, they do seem like a pretty significant jump, from 10% jump in both areas, so I would be inclined to leave it as recommended by the EDC team.
So I'm in the same boat. I think we go by with what planning department recommended at the 35 and 45, and if it needs adjustment thereafter, it'll be adjusted thereafter. So,
One more comment.
sure, go ahead.
Through the chair, I appreciate what Jay said, and I think maybe it's a bigger picture that we look at other areas, because, like you said, it's going to force development into one area. And maybe there are other areas that could do for a change in impervious to promote housing. So maybe a larger look, which I'm sure you guys have already started doing.
So I guess I'll make a motion to approve it, but just back to the original numbers that the planning department came up with at the 35 and the 45. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Our next line item of business would be the marijuana overlay, and that's for 23-899. Amy, if you could give us an overview, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was another thing that came up with the EDC, is just to try to look at updating our marijuana overlay district map, what maybe parcels we could add, and there were some parcels that we were taking away, just due to whether it's a school or educational organization. So we minused a few of each. We have 3 areas in town, or 3 industrial areas that we have parcel selective, so it's not the entire industrial district, it's actually parcels that are picked out. And so in front of you, they have proposed adding a few in each district and also taking away a few. And some of them might be some of the land was near the Y. Daycares have been added, daycares have left. And so that's why this is in front of us, to see if there's any other opportunity. Note that some of these lots are already developed. So this is also a future thing, should that lot become a redevelopment lot. And they don't want to continue what they're doing on that lot and someone wants to buy it, that they may take down what is already there and put in, whether it's a grow facility or retail facility, they would have that option to do that. So it's not looking for vacant lots, it's looking for lots within the industrial areas of our town that make sense to have an opportunity at some point in the future. It could be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that these could be developed or never developed. But it's just kind of trying to resort out the land of what would make sense for the marijuana.
Okay, good, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, through the chair. I'm still, I can't figure out where this is, the page one. Where is this where West Central and Spring Street is? I cannot place that. And, we're looking to add. So I guess my thought is, Amy, is, I know way back when when this was all coming about for growing in retail stores, we kind of put everything in the industrial zone or, in the industrial parks. So what my concern is, are we getting out of the industrial parks and trying to go other places?
Actually, through the chair, every lot that you see that we've put add on is zoned industrial.
Okay,
So it's not outside our industrial zone. So there's no lots that are not zoned industrial. They're all zoned industrial.
okay, because I'm
Did
like.
that answer your question?
What's that? Okay, I mean, like I said, I'm just, concerned about that one.
Yep.
So, my thinking is that, we're not getting out of the industrial zone. I mean, marijuana is one thing. What's next? The adult district and all that stuff? Because I know we passed it many years ago, it was all staying in the industrial. So as long as it's staying there, I'm fine with that. With the exception of, I think we, is, ones here and there that I don't think should go, but,
This, yeah,
it's just.
this is specifically just the marijuana. This
Right.
isn't a Delta.
Yeah, no, I know.
I just had a quick question to Amy. By any chance, were all the landowners notified of the ads on this? Were they notified that we're thinking about doing this?
I don't think we did a mailing. We did the public hearing notice, and we also posted it on the website.
Do they have to be notified?
Well, I'm
They,
just
it's
thinking-
not required.
No, I'm just thinking we were,
I mean, because it's already there.
no, I know. I'm just throwing it out there, just a thought. Okay. So what was the total adds and subtractions? 1, 2, 3, 4. About 6 adds and 70 deletion, 1 big deletion. Okay. And this was just cleaning up all loose ends from previous too, correct, Amy?
Yeah, thank you,
From-
Mr. Chairman. So, I mean, I can elaborate a little bit, like, map C is actually the big X is the EMC building. That's because there's a daycare right in front of it
Yep.
that we found out. That actually probably should have never been on the map, because I think the daycare's been there for a while, that we realized when we were going through this. You have map A, by the Forge Hill Road. Those X's more or less relate to, the YMCA being up there.
Yep,
So,
yep.
which we wanted to get away from that area.
Correct.
So that's pretty much, we have coming in on map B, off of Grove Street and off of the Prime Park Street. We now have a school up there.
Yep.
So we pulled, that's why there's 4 X's there. So they've pulled off those lots because there's a school up there.
Okay.
That just came in a few years ago.
Okay. Everybody happy with the additions and deletions in the areas? Okay. So I make a motion to accept the zoning amendment 23-899. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, can we get a recommendation to town council for this, please?
Yeah, also make a recommendation to move it along to town council for 23-899. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Just, I know we already made a motion to recommend as previously requested through the Department of Planning and Community Development for the impervious coverage, but I think we missed a part of the C1 and 3 family. Wasn't there more language that you needed us to accept on that one as well?
My apologies.
That's all right. I think it's not too late to go back to that one.
It's not too late, because you never closed the public. Yes, you can go back to that one.
That's the where's the 7 added to the table? It's the dimensional requirements of a 3-family in the C1. It talks about, as mentioned, C1 zoning districts have at least some mixed use, and planning department is recommending that now that the multifamily residential use has been divided into 2 categories by passing the zoning bylaw amendment, recommends removing the more restrictive requirements for multifamily projects with only 3 housing units. A 3-family should not be required to have mixed-use components. DPCD recommends adding wording into Note 7 in Attachment 9 that states 3-family developments are exempt from the mixed-use development. So, note number 7 indicates the change is permitted residential uses must observe requirements of GR5 district for residential use buildings only, and then the change would be multifamily residential with 3 housing units and mixed-use buildings are exempt from this requirement.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
to Amy, sorry, regarding that. Why would any 3-family residents have trouble meeting GR5 requirements? Maybe I just want to better understand the reasoning behind that, of having that group be exempt from those requirements.
For the chair?
Go ahead.
They have stricter setbacks. Their side and their front and their back are stricter than the C1 district.
Right, so in order to preserve
So-
the kind of character of the district and allowing buildings to be closer to the street edge or whatnot, we're saying that they're exempt from adhering to having a 20-foot front yard setback instead of, oh no, I guess that's the same, that's a bad example. 15-yard, instead of having a 15-yard side, they can have a 10-foot side, or sorry, 15-foot side, 10-foot side. I'm looking at all the requirements and wondering, it could also technically be a taller building, 40 feet instead of 35 feet. I'm just,
So it allows for a more denser development with the C1 regulations versus the GR5 setbacks.
okay.
That help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here, make a motion to recommend to town council the section regarding note 5 as written. 7, sorry.
7.
Note 7 as written.
Go your
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Got that. Good. All right. All right, so our next item would be a public hearing, initial public hearing for 8 Hemlock Lane. It's a special permit in the site application, site plan. If anybody is,
Should be for 5 Hemlock?
excuse me?
5 Hemlock?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
On the agenda.
Oh, it's on the agenda, yeah.
You know, sorry, through the chair. I originally had posted 8, I did change it to 5, so it is correct, but you might have gotten the old agenda.
This paperwork's correct. The
Yeah,
agenda- I was reading
yes.
off the agenda.
My apologies.
So, no worries. I guess we'll go to Amy first, if you want to give us a quick, we've had 1 or 2 of these already in the past, if you want to just give us.
Mr. Chairman, just make a motion to waive the public
Oh,
reading, the
yep.
public hearing notice.
So moved, to a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a special permit through an increase of impervious surface for a single family residential house. They're located in the rural residential 2 zoning district. They're looking to add a pool cabana. The site currently has 24.2% impervious where 25% is allowed. and they're looking to increase it to 28.5% for impervious. I just want to note that I didn't have Beta review this. I did have our town engineer review the impervious surface. I will refer to him for that. They have paid the special permit fee, but are requesting that the site plan application fee of $1,500 be waived.
Everybody in favor of waiving the 1,500? Okay, good. Okay. Amanda, if you want to.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amanda Cavalieri with Garrier and Hellman, on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Greg Gales. So we've provided a plan that shows it's a single-family house, existing single-family house that currently has a two-story wood-framed house with pool and paved area, or concrete patio around it, pool shed, and lawn area, as well as a septic system. Now, this is something similar to the Water Resource District. However, where it's not in there, a special permit isn't required through zoning board. We have to come through planning board. So some of the requirements on here, we met based on the special permit criteria for a site plan approval. But again, I wanted to remind the board that it is a single family lot. So some of the requirements are somewhat, I guess in our professional opinion, a little bit much for a single-family lot. But in any event, the only proposed increase to impervious coverage is for the pool cabana, which is 18 by 12, which we show on the plan. I do have Mike Hassett with our office. He should be online. He does have a colored plan if anybody wants to see it, just to kind of be able to differentiate the areas that are existing versus proposed. But to mitigate the impervious coverage below the 25%, we've added some Cultec chamber, a Cultec chamber unit up near the front of the property by the pool cabana, and that is planned to capture both pool cabana roof and a portion of the existing roof of the single-family house to get it below the 25%. So we're requesting a special permit from the planning board to allow for the increase in impervious coverage with mitigation to get us below the 25%.
Good, thank you. Anybody? I know Willie had a couple questions.
I have a quick question, and to the chair. I'm all for this. This is fine with me. I'm just a little confused. We have, I think, 3 different numbers of how much impervious is going to be. You have 28.5%. Mike has, I think it says the site is 26.6, which already exceeds the 25%. And then there's also a number of, which it says 24.2 impervious, where 25 is impervious is allowed, and it's jumping up to 28. Is it going to be 28.5?
So the total impervious coverage is 28.5,
Okay,
and we will be mitigating below that to 24.2.
okay.
Sure.
I just have a question in terms of what is being added to the site that is impervious. I see the footprint of the cabana.
Yes.
But in the rendering, it shows paving everywhere
So there's
on the ground. And I know that there's existing
Yes.
concrete identified. Maybe this is where the colored plan would
You
come
want
into
to
play.
have him show a colored plan for us?
Yeah, Mike, can you bring up the colored plan?
I was just wondering if any new ground impervious surface is being added directly,
So that's the discrepancy with the existing versus the proposed, because some of the increase in impervious coverage comes from, it's almost like a duplication. So we have the 18 by 22 proposed cabana. There's already existing impervious coverage under that. So they're proposing to put with a paved patio. So some of there's some overlap.
I see.
I just need to be authorized to share my screen if you'd like me to do that.
Maxine, you there?
Tyler's there.
Oh, Tyler?
You can give him co-host.
Tyler, you there?
Yeah, he has co-host
You
now.
wanna
I got it now, yep.
let him share the screen?
Yep.
All right, you seen it now?
Yep.
So that,
Okay, so the light brown is the existing house and existing pool shed in the bottom right-hand corner. The white represents various like walkways or patio area. The dark brown is the new pool cabana roof area. And the green is just lawn area. And the pink area is the recharge chamber.
Okay, good, thank you. That a little bit clearer?
Yeah, it was hard to discern what was actually existing versus new, to see it previous to the cabana being added, so that is helpful, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have comments, questions?
Yeah, I'd actually just like to hear from Mike about his letter.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I did review this, the proposal, and when I did, I went back and read the zoning bylaw, and it does state that greater coverage may be allowed if the stormwater runoff from the site will not be increased following development. And that's all it really says. There's no criteria as far as how that should be analyzed. So as I went through, my recommendation was it should be analyzed for the 100-year storm, no increase as our normal stormwater bylaw requires, and that's basically industry standard. It was pointed out to me afterwards that in the special permit criteria, we do have a document for that on the planning board website, which actually does call out that impervious coverage can be allowed if it can be documented that stormwater runoff from the site will not be increased following development by more than 10% in a 25-year storm. So there is a criteria there that I wasn't aware of when I wrote the letter. So based on that information, the proposal does meet the criteria that's been specified out there. So I have no issues with that.
Okay. Yeah. Good? Yeah. Rick? Good? I'm good.
Issues.
Yep. Okay, I'm all set. This will be a roll call because special permit. There is one thing though, Amanda, if you could take that drawing, the highlighted drawing, the color drawing, and part of the final packet, that way it's a little bit easier for everybody to signify what's what.
Yeah, sure.
If you could do that as part of it,
Yep.
that'd be great. It's a little bit easier fall than the black and white drawing, that's all.
yep,
For all.
no problem.
Okay?
So, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the site plan as submitted.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now we'll go to roll call.
Yep, special permit.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can we also make a motion to waive the fee?
Oh,
The
make a
site-
motion
Yeah.
to waive the fee.
The $1,500 fee, I thought we already did that. Yep. but-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before I read this one, so this is. All right, roll call vote for the special permit. Special permit to allow impervious coverage increase from 28.5 under section, to 28.5 under section 185-36. Proposed project addresses or is consistent with neighborhood or town need. Greg Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams.
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. Vehicular traffic flow, access and parking and pedestrian safety are properly addressed. Greg Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams.
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. Public roadways, drainage, utilities, and other infrastructure are adequate or will be upgraded to accommodate development. Gregory Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams,
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. Neighborhood character and social structure will not be negatively impacted. Greg Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams,
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. Project will not destroy or cause substantial damage to any environmentally significant natural resource, habitat, or feature, or, if it will, proposed mitigation, remediation, replication, or compensatory measures are adequate. Greg Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams.
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. Number, height, bulk, location, and siting of buildings and structure will not result in abutting properties being deprived of light or fresh air circulation or being exposed to flooding or subjected to excessive noise, odor, light, vibrations, or airborne particulates. Greg Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams.
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. Okay. Water consumption and sewer use, taking into consideration current and projected future local water supply and demand and wastewater treatment capacity will not be excessive. Gregory Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams.
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes. And the proposed use will not have as adverse effects which overbalance its beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town in view of the particular characteristics of the site and of the proposal in relation to the site. Greg Rondo,
Yes.
Rick Power,
Yes.
William David,
Yes.
Jennifer Williams.
Yes.
Beth Whirling, yes.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you, you're all set.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, our next line item on the agenda would be for a continuation of the Maplegate North Star Solar. Amy, if you want to give us a brief update, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know they've been in front of us a couple times with their plan to build the solar, so this is Maplegate North. So it's one part of the parcel of Maplegate. I know there was concerns about asking about Lot 2, what could be allowed there for public access. We know that there is a vernal pool in the middle of it. I've spoke with conservation agents, so there is a concern about working with COMCOM, how much of public access will be allowed on the Lot 2. The board had asked at the last meeting about plantings for the cart path that they were gonna remove, so I know that there was, the board had asked about additional plantings for that. Should the project move forward, two things for the board to consider as special conditions is to put a pilot program in place, which we have done with all the previous solar farms that have come in front of us, and we've also requested a surety bond, a decommissioned surety bond, which we expect that the applicant to provide, an amount of what it would be to decommission, and the town holds on to that security bond until it's time to decommission the solar panels.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. We'll go to Mike first, because I know Bailey's got quite a bit. Mike, if you want to give us a brief overview, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I reviewed the most recent plans that were submitted, and our previous comments were addressed. We just noticed in our review, though, there was, we just had one new comment on the yellow control structure. There's an opening on that structure that just called out on the plans that as per design, so we just recommend that being noted on the final plans for the actual opening, which was 11 inches wide by 3 inches high, with an invert of 203 elevation based on the stormwater calculation. So as long as that matches stormwater calculations on the final plan, that should take care of that final comment.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. First question is, do you want to go to, we'll go to Gary first. I see he responded back and you guys responded back, so. Gary from Beta, if you could give us a review of.
I just have two significant items that are remaining, Greg and I, Mr. Chairman. Number one is we're still looking for test pit data on that, in that proposed retention basin. And, I know they complain they don't want to do it because of the issues associated with the current golf operations. But there are a couple of areas in there where it is forested. It's outside the fairways, the greens. They can get in there. Right now, we don't have anything.
Okay.
I don't really feel that comfortable actually approving this or telling you this is gonna work without having something.
Okay.
At least something to tell us specifically what we're gonna see here in
Yep.
terms of subsurface. Second is, I'd like to see, one of the comments I made was they're removing quite a few of the cart paths on the north side. And I'd like to see some time constraints on that, only because it is linear, it is outside the primary work area, and if you're gonna do, I'm not gonna tell them not to take up the cart paths, because that's a good thing.
Sure.
But the answer is, I'd like to see a time frame, either 7, 14 days, you just leave it. In other words, just limit the exposure on it. Other than that, the rest of it is kind of good housekeeping.
Okay.
And I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good, thank you. Just to take your point, I think we spoke of this in the last, and I think I even actually recommended just bringing a small mini excavator, a little track machine out there to do this, the test pit data, because it's going to be least disruptive. You know, bringing a large excavator out there to dig 2 feet, 3 feet deep. And I also think I made a note that it would make a difference with Concom too, in case something should change. So this is one of the things I think I thought we got it resolved, that you guys are gonna go and do that, just to put this thing to bed. But to Gary's point, I agree with him. You just wanna make sure you get all the data in front of you, so you make an educated decision, as well as have it for Conservation Commission, in case something should change, that's all. But if you guys just wanna give us a quick overview of where we stand and what you're working on as well.
Yeah, sounds great. This is Greg DeBona with Bowler again. Good to see you. I have Daniel Serper here with NextGrid as well, on behalf of our applicant. So we saw the recent letters, everything that was summarized. I think in big picture, we are working towards addressing those comments. I don't think we have any issues addressing the recommendations that were provided. What we've done since our last meeting was we did work towards trying to address some of the comments previously. We added things like the truck circulation plan. And in fact, there was one comment recommendation in there as well in Beta's letter about making sure that we note that there's a grass shoulder that extends beyond. And again, no problem with there, because we do have a large area of grass on either side of the gravel that provides additional space between that and the start of any solar paneling. There also was some comments, and we didn't talk about it right now. We talked about last time about whether we needed to do any sort of mitigation on the noise component. And we've been looking at this earlier today, and we feel we can put some sort of single CMU wall type structure, so we have some sort of noise barrier on the basically west side of the equipment pad. So a single freestanding wall. Even though I think we've added a lot more information about how much distance there is, there's existing vegetation, and there's a whole mill and mulch yard but regardless, we're definitely within that 400-foot distance. We only have about 160 feet from the pad to the property line. So we're gonna go ahead and put in that screen wall, so we'll add that in. We did try to do the hand augering approach, because we talked about that last meeting about the soil tests. We kind of struck out. We hit some really hard compacted surface within the actual fairway itself. So we know we do have to get out there with an excavator. So we are gonna, the recommendation in the latest letter was dig 2 now and then go back and dig 2 more prior to construction, and we're gonna get moving on that right away. So I don't have that data yet, but we're gonna move expeditiously to get that resolved so we can get those answers. There was also some, as Gary had mentioned, a couple calculation item things that we got to follow up on, some TSS calculation spreadsheets and stuff like that, which we will provide and follow up on. And I agree, there's no issue at all with adding more detail to the construction timing and sequence notes, especially on those areas that are really kind of off track of where we're improving, where we're going to be removing the cart paths and then restabilizing. And this has come up with our discussions with the Conservation Commission as well, so they're aware, and we're talking about how to basically instantly disturb and stabilize at the same time, and work with them about vegetation to be stabilized in those areas, as well as they also had a request for certain species to be transplanted back on site. There was some low-growing shrubs that they wanted, that's kind of in abundance on the property today. So where we can then relocate those and place those within the wetland buffers or within those areas that we're disturbing that are outside of the solar array, then we agreed to use that vegetation and move it, try to keep as much of that on site as possible. We also acknowledge that if there's additional vegetation that can be utilized elsewhere in town, we agreed to stockpile that and allow that to be picked up or utilized. Off the top of my head, I forget the name of the species, but there was a certain shrub that they felt was kind of rare but also in abundance on the course itself. So they like the idea of trying to preserve it and put it elsewhere throughout the town. And there's some notes there about the, some construction level detailing, some additional information on level spreaders. We mentioned, and rock check dams, and we mentioned the outlet control. All kind of minor, but just very technical of making sure that what's in our reports match what's on plans, match what is on our standard details. So these are all things that we have no problem addressing and intend on incorporating right away. I just wanted to address planning commission's planning and development's letter. I think, Amy, you summarized all the points to the point where I don't think we had anything to do besides just agree and say, yes, we will address those items. So again, the items you put in your letter as potential conditions, no problem there. Those are no problem with us meeting those conditions. And there's some items in the relating to the comments that we are still working towards. So we intend on having a very defined area of that parcel 2 that will be basically conserved for future public use and access to the town. And it would be fenced, and we do also have that additional gravel lot that's directly adjacent to it, which we're calling out for basically 1 or 2 solar panel freestanding area lights. So you'd have some level of actual lighting, even though we don't propose lighting for the rest of the solar array itself, but knowing that we're going to open up this area as potential public use, we want 1 or 2 lights out there to illuminate that gravel parking lot. We are still working through just the final logistics of getting the easements in place for that, so that we don't actually have those write-ups yet, but our team is working on them and getting that resolved.
Okay.
So, but generally, I think at this point we're really close to saying we're going to address everything that's in these letters, and
Yeah, I
it's
saw
just a
your
matter of kind of
responses.
finishing, with the formal responses
Working
and
right through it.
getting
Getting very
final
close.
plans in for acknowledgement.
Where do you stand with Concom?
Yeah, so CONSCOM, we have actually a follow-up meeting coming this Thursday.
Okay.
At the last meeting, we did discuss that some of the review there was a small isolated vegetative wetlands that was not picked up in the original delineation. It's 307 square feet, which on a 70-plus acre site is a very, very small area that we did miss, right in between where basically the putting green is and the tee box for hole 1. It was basically a runoff from some of the parking lot area that created this wet depression. So what we've done is we've amended our application to Conservation Commission to seek a variance to be able to fill that isolated wetlands, and then we've also identified where we're going to have 2-to-1 or more than 2-to-1 compensation, just because we have so much other areas, wetland areas on site where we can do that. So we're going to be there on Thursday night. We intend on presenting these changes. We're not sure if we're going to get all the way through to, finalize our application that night, but we do expect that if we don't get through finalizing on Thursday, we'll be back 2 weeks from then and be probably done
Getting very
with
close.
everything on August 10th. They did recommend even at the last meeting that they felt we were really close and just wanted to see those final delineations and where we were doing the requesting the variance relief for wetlands. And
Okay.
they were pretty happy with everything else we were proposing.
Okay, good. Before I go to the board, Amy, I just had one quick question. With Lot 2, that's going to become basically PUCO. We're not holding them up through Concom with any of that work, right? What we're going to do with that parcel? I just don't want to hold these guys up with something that they're
Well-
basically giving the town to utilize.
So good question, because they also filed for Maplegate South. So they also have the whole, lot 2 will stay vacant no matter what with both these projects.
Yes.
I'd like to see something offered sooner than later. I think getting an answer out of COMCOM because of the vernal pool there would be nice to know. if they're going to allow the public access there. They have a parking lot, they've indicated, if it was something that the town really wanted out of this project, whether it's a concept plan, I mean, it's totally up to the board, or some idea before closing this one out and moving on to, they're actually in front of us, August 21st for Maple Gate South
Okay.
that they filed. So, it'd be nice to see some type,
So it could be close that we could work out.
that's the board's
Okay.
decision. If the board would
Okay.
like to see something prior to closing,
I just don't want the
they
town
can.
holding up these guys if they're basically getting to, close to the end, and then, you know, we as a town holding them up for something they're gonna give us, that's all. Okay. Beth?
Just to kind of follow up with that one, Mr. Chairman, that if it's something, you know, that we feel we can recommend that as a condition of approval, the applicant work with appropriate town staff and boards to make sure that the Lot 2 is appropriate for public use, and saying the option to have public use, and, you know, should we want to review the plan, just as a common courtesy, maybe they could bring it back, but I think we have good staff that could probably help recommend something.
Or if not, we could piggyback it on the second phase, however it works, but I just wanna make sure we're not holding them up, if that being said, that's all. Okay. All right, so I had a couple more questions and comments, but I'll go to the board, anybody? Jay, Jen?
Through the chair, I agree with all the phase 2 stuff, but it seemed like, at least from the last beta report that I saw at Concom, which I can't find the report with responses, there was still a lot outstanding, and I feel like we should at least see their approval through phase 1, Concom's approval for this phase 1 work, independent of the parcel in question that might end up having, be an amenity for the town, just to know that they fully support it before we approve it.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we're dragging them down with something we're trying to get.
Yeah, the other part of it, yeah.
Yep,
Mhm.
okay,
That's all, thanks.
great. Ron, question?
I'm all set.
Okay. Billy?
I'm good.
Okay. The only other question I had was, the bond, that'd be for the decommissioning.
Yes.
Projected numbers, and I also wanna make sure there's a bond in there for trees, for
Mhm.
replanting as well.
Mhm.
And I believe it was close to 10 acres that you're cutting.
That's
So I
correct,
was
yeah,
doing
the
some
total
math,
wooded
so
area, yeah, that's right.
Certain number I was thinking, but, I'd like to see some numbers on that before, anything gets too far down the road, to make sure we can all agree upon it. I know you guys have done it in the past, yeah. that's
Yeah, Daniel Server, Next Grid Man. Do you want us to prepare that, or you want us to get that from a third-party engineer or Beta to prepare that?
What did we do up on Spring Street? We get it from these guys, or?
through the chair, we actually had the applicant prepare that.
Okay, could you guys prepare for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That they keep it in-house, okay. Anybody else? Gary, Mike, no, Amy, anybody in the audience, any questions on it? Zoom? Anybody have their hand up? No? Okay. So, what are we looking for? If they're going Thursday night,
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind,
Think.
and then they think they'll be back August 10th, COMCOM, I would say August 21st with planning board.
okay,
I think that would give time for both parties to kind of work through the issues.
okay. So make a motion to continue, Maplegate North Solar to August 21st. Wait a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Ma'am. Amy,
August 7th.
okay. Okay. All right, this will be our last hearing for the night. This will be a continuation of a public hearing for 100 to 200 Financial Way. Amy, if Department of Planning, if you could give us an overview, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So last time, we actually had them for 2 hearings. The first hearing was more to talk about the site and the stormwater and the drainage, and the second hearing was to talk about traffic. Tonight, we've had responses for the stormwater management, not so much the traffic. I know that there was
Yeah, we'll
concern.
have more for traffic. We'll just put traffic on the back burner for now.
Well, whatever the board decides. So I know that there was concern about the curbing throughout the site, that it wasn't consistent. The board wanted to see the height of the buildings, like from street level and from where they are now. The applicant did indicate that they would be filing an A&R plan to split the site. That was indicated it was not ready, so I know that the board had asked to see a draft of that, which we haven't seen that yet. So those are my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Excuse me, that's we'll go to, I guess I'll go to Mike. Mike from DPW, if you want to give us an overview of what your thoughts are as we are now.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. We reviewed the most recent submission, and we had just a handful of comments. Several of them, I think, were previous comments. We weren't sure if they've actually been addressed. We didn't see that they were addressed in these plans, but there were a couple of runs of HDP pipe, plastic pipe. One was 30-inch diameter, another one was an 18-inch diameter pipe along the 2 buildings. I just recommend that if that's going to be the proposal, that they apply for a waiver from the board to identify those as opposed to the reinforced concrete pipe. Also, building 1 calls out for a van ramp going into the building, and again, just identifying a gas trap on the plans where any interior floor drains will be connected to the sewer system. I had another comment regarding the curbing that Amy just mentioned, and also just a comment on the stormwater. It appears that the total amount of retained runoff currently doesn't meet the town bylaw requirement of 1 inch of the total amount of post-construction impervious area being retained on site. So just something else to, I know they do have a lot of subsurface storage on the site, but based on the calculations we reviewed, it did appear that they were meeting that requirement of the full 1 inch.
Okay, good. That was that. So your 4 items, okay. I'll go to Gary. From Vader, I know there was quite a bit of response to all your comments. If you wanna.
There has been, we did have quite a few comments
Yeah.
on this. We had actually, I had actually met with High Point 2 weeks ago, relative to the stormwater comments and a lot of the issues that we did have. It appears that quite a few of them have been addressed. There's still an issue. I still have a couple of issues relative to the overall groundwater levels, because obviously because of the existing use, they just don't have access. They don't have the ability to be able to provide a lot of test pit data.
Yep.
So they're going to have to depend on some of the data that they've already got. Part of it is monitoring wells, and I believe they got readings in March of 2023. So they do have the ability to develop some groundwater contours, and I think that's probably the best way to handle this, and then condition associated with that. But they have done quite a few changes, and a lot of the areas that were outside of the limits of the proposed development, especially on the perimeter road, they have put in water quality units to give us some additional treatment. So that is a real big benefit associated with it, in order to meet the maximum extent possible. They're not proposing any changes to the basin. They are now meeting peak flow rates associated with the existing fire pond.
Okay.
So they've done their homework relative to that to be able to make the changes necessary.
Yep.
Other than that, like I said, I will go through it. I think they've pretty much gone on the curbing to vertical granite or vertical precast concrete.
Yep.
Yeah, I think across the entire site. So I think they've addressed those issues associated with what we had originally proposed. Because before it was everything.
It was all over.
It was everywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I will have a letter for you probably middle of the week.
Okay. I guess if you guys want to, before I go to the board, Doug, if you want to introduce yourself and your team.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Doug Hartnett, Principal, High Point Engineering. Joining me is a number of team members tonight. We want to address not just the comments from Gary and Mike, but also the board's comments at our last meeting close to a month ago. Brendan Pellerin, applicant here on my left-hand side from Berkeley, Andy Ramirez from Berkeley, who was remote, Jonathan Quinn to my right with Brody Architects, he's our record architect, Nick Campanelli, MDLA, is our landscape architect. He'll be discussing some of the landscape design changes we've made. Daniel Mills, MDM Transportation, I know you said we'll table the traffic, but there's just a couple of items we wanted to give the board a progress report on.
Yep.
And then Connie Lou, our project manager. So I have, how should I connect this? I could either go to this, or I can pull that and try to tie it into mine, Amy, so.
Can you pull this?
I'm just pull
Yeah,
that.
pull that one. Turn this on. Yes, an HDMI. Got it. Okay. Hopefully it takes a minute, but it should kick on.
Success.
Try not to do every single one, but.
You never know with technology, do you?
Don't argue, it just worked. Last time we did this, it took about 15 minutes or so, the last one. Not you guys, but another one.
Yeah, I've been there, been on the other side of that too. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're going to discuss a number of items. Some of the slides you'll see forthcoming, you've seen, or there are adjustments to them. Let me get here. What do we got here? Just to that. So project status. We've, as Gary said, we've done a comprehensive response to comments on the beta report, includes site plan, stormwater revisions, revised stormwater management report, fully revised and submitted. We received the original comments from Mr. Maglio on the engineering DPW. We had a meeting with the DPW and engineering team about a month ago or so, Mike. And we just received Mike's comments, and I want to address perhaps one or two of those as we go through this. Traffic, we did receive the peer review comments, and that has been submitted as of the end of last week for formal response to comments and review by Beta. Conservation Commission, we owe them a visit. We had been waiting for a lot of the planning-related items to settle down with the peer review responses with the Beta letters. I intend to be at the Concom meeting on this Thursday night, give them an update. We'll be submitting plans in response to comments of the commission shortly, within the next week or so. But if you look at the planning, how we want to intend to try to close this out, we want to get all the engineering-related comments addressed from a plan perspective, so that if there's any activities within the buffer zones under conservation jurisdiction, those are well represented, and then the commission can go through the plan set one more time. And hopefully they'll make an approval and issue an order of conditions, and I understand the planning board wants that in order to be able to render your decision on our site plan review. So that is our goal for that effort going forward. Some of the comments and Amy did a good job of summarizing these comments from the last meeting. The board wanted some better comparisons of the plan as it related to what exists today, and I know it's difficult to maybe see on this image here, but I just wanted to point out in the zoning compliance summary, what we have done is we have taken and this was really specific to the wetland areas, I think the impervious cover, the building coverage, and so forth. We've identified what exists under Lot 5A, which is really the north lot, we'll call it, and 5B, which is the south lot. And then broken out Lot 5A proposed and Lot 5B proposed. And as you know, the lot areas changed, the percentage of wetlands to uplands changed, because we are proposing to modify this interior lot line to accommodate the development of both buildings while still retaining the required setbacks for the Champagne building, which will exist. And as Amy said, we've commissioned the A&R plan with Hancock, they're our surveyor for the project, And we have asked them to have a draft A&R for us to present to the board at the next meeting, to demonstrate compliance with that request by the board. So what you would see, if I can even see this, generally speaking, as it existed and as they're proposed, both parcels fully complied with both the lot coverage and building coverage requirements. I'll give you some representative values. So if we talk about 5A, which is the upper lot, the existing impervious coverage percentage was 31%. That's gone up to 51%, with the cap at being 80 under the district. And for building coverage, that's gone from 13% to 22%, with a cap being 70%. And then conversely, for lot 5B, we have 70% was the impervious coverage, which has now been reduced to 46% for 5B. And building coverage was 43%, that's been reduced to about 10%. So the takeaway is, project as proposed is fully compliant under the underlying zoning. And there's nothing of, I feel, concern, professionally speaking, concern regarding the values that we're seeing here for the building coverage, impervious coverage, and so forth. One other item we want to raise regarding the zoning conformance is the parking summary. And we need direction from the board about how we want to handle the recalculation of zoning compliant parking. Gary asked that we split the building uses from office to warehouse and project those parking demands versus just calling the office an ancillary use to the primary, which is warehouse. So what that's done is it's increased the parking demand under zoning to 413 spaces. The ask for reduction is still 262, if I'm reading this correctly. So there'll be a larger request for reduction because of the zoning demand. The current form that we filed shows the old demand, so you just have to let me know if I need to resubmit that form or if this testimony is adequate for the board to make that waiver. Let's see, next slide. As Gary said, we've done a substantial amount of called re-engineering of the stormwater, and this, you have two slides here. This is the north building and south building grading and drainage plans. We found in doing pricing studies that the original proposed corrugated metal pipe embedded in stone for the underground stormwater retention and infiltration, a few years ago, that was the most cost-effective solution, and we have been employing that going forward. We're understanding now that that has now changed, and that the high-density Cultec type systems are now more cost-effective. So this all came about when Gary asked us to take a look at some of the design and perhaps refine it and make it a better project. So we've gone back in and we've redesigned this using the Cultec systems as an alternate to the corrugated metal pipe. What it's done is it's allowed us to reduce the footprints, as you can see in here. We've also taken some, we've remodeled this pond to actually look at its functional attributes, and have been able to take advantage of some of the pond operations for peak flow control as well. As Mike had said, he obviously pointed out the high-density polyethylene pipe difference against the standard reinforced concrete. That has to do with the pipe run here, which if you can see the cursor on the south end of building 5A, and on the north side of this building. And the reason we wanted to stay with HDPE there, we don't have the plumbing plans fully determined. Typically, these warehouses have exterior downspouts that tie to an HDPE or PVC header that collects and then extends to some infiltration system. Making that concrete can be problematic because of the way the connections work between HDPE and concrete. They don't cast concrete like that, and it becomes very cumbersome. I think in terms of asking for that waiver on the HDPE for that length and this length is appropriate given the system, and all other drainage is proposed to be reinforced concrete pipe otherwise.
Quick question, is that in grass strip or is that under asphalt?
It's under asphalt.
It is, okay. Well, what's the depth you're looking for that? I know that's always been an issue.
I'll have to get back to you. It's in the files, but if that's a concern for the board, we can provide that info.
Yeah, because anything generally under asphalt, we always look for the precast concrete, that's why I'm asking. But I understand the manifold systems with the drainage. We'll defer back to Mike and Dave on that, but, okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask Dan Mills to say a few words about our efforts on both the on-site driveway configuration as well as the off-site King Street, Washington Street studies that they've been conducting. Dan?
Sure. Thanks, Doug. Good evening. Dan Mills from MDM Transportation Consultants. As was mentioned, we did discuss some of the traffic concerns at the last hearing, and just want to provide a brief update. A couple of the items that were outstanding and required further discussion on our part. If you could bring up that slide that you just left off on.
Oh, sorry. You mean this slide?
The financial park entrance slide.
Oh. Dan, what can you see? Because I'm not sure what you're seeing. He can't see it. Can we get...
So what you just...
There we go.
You just go to the next slide.
There we go.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah.
So one of the comments that we received was, in the meantime, we have actually responded in writing to the beta peer review comments and have submitted those. We believe we addressed all the comments, but obviously happy to continue the discussion on any of the items. One of the comments involved the financial park entrance on Washington Street. And the matter here is that tractor trailers exiting to the right out of the driveway encroach onto the in the opposing travel lane. So exactly, someone turning right out, the tractor trailer swings out into the opposing travel lane. In order to mitigate that, we are proposing to realign the driveway, shifting it to the north, and that allows us to increase the radius at the left southern part of the driveway. So that radius there can be increased such that the tractor trailers can be maintained in the single travel lane and travel south to King Street. So we'll be refining this design and providing a plan to the town and Beta for their review.
Can I ask a quick question? Approximately how many feet are you opening that entrance up, the throat of that?
Well, we're pulling the island back further. We're narrowing the island, pulling it back, and widening the lane. So in totality, it's probably 24 feet is the new width of the travel lane. And then we're widening the radius by, I think it's a 50-foot radius on that area there.
Okay. We're going to do it. We're going to make sure we do it right.
Correct. And then just the other update I wanted to provide tonight is at the King Street Washington signal. So this is the next slide. Thank you. The comment was that tractor trailers were getting stuck in the intersection. So we did some monitoring over almost 2 full days. 98% of the tractor trailers negotiated the movement without any issue, but there were about 2% that did clip and strike the median on the Washington Street approach in some fashion. We did not notice any backing or tying up the intersection, but we did notice them either striking the curb, riding over it in some fashion. Again, it was 2%, but it's still, we still feel that it can be improved upon. Our recommendation is to remove the raised island and install a scored concrete island that would be more flush with the pavement and enhance the pavement markings at that location. It's likely due to the inexperienced drivers are making that, that movement and striking the curb. Obviously, making a left turn from that alignment, the tractor trailer, the rear end off tracks at a tighter radius than the front of the truck. So the rear end rear wheels were noticed to strike the curb. We also had planned to repair the malfunctioning detection, the vehicle detection at the intersection. And based on comments at the last hearing, DPW was looking to have video detection installed, so we'll be going forward with the video detection as the method of operation there. And that's, again, a quick update from a traffic perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, actually, I had one, and I don't know if it'll help everybody else on the board. Could you show the previous slide, or maybe an overall view, and show the actual truck route to get to the loading docks? Because it's kind of, is it looping around the right side of the loop road all the way around? Because if so, I just had some questions in reference to that.
Mr. Chairman, do you mean internally to the site?
Yes, internally. Because it's kind of
If
hard
we
to
do this
decipher.
plan, we could do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, is it?
What is your plan?
So if you were to follow the cursor,
And why is that a cul-de-sac I see you written there? Is that?
yeah, so this is I call it a paper cul-de-sac in a sense. When Digital, or was Putnam at the time, when they subdivided this off long ago, they created the paper cul-de-sac to create frontage.
Okay.
Why they did that, I'm not quite sure. It's been on the books for a long time,
I didn't
so.
know if that was part of your remediation out front at first. That's
No, this is a right-of-way that they
Yeah.
created, yet the driveway
Okay,
just
sure.
cuts straight through the bulk.
So if you could just give the people watching as well as the board, just a quick overview. If you were a truck pulling in, turning left onto a site, what would your travel pattern to be to get to the middle of the shipping doors if you want to just follow the mouse or the hand?
Sure. So if I am coming to the project site, I come in and I follow the main driveway. We refer to it as the ring road.
Mhm.
It extends around the perimeter and then enters the truck court from this position here. And this entry point allows you to load and offload at Champaign, which is called Building 3, and then a shared truck court for Building 1 and Building 2. So there's adequate width here to promote the maneuvering requirements for both trucks in this truck court area. And then in exiting, those trucks would exit the same
And there's
route.
enough turn-in radiuses with those two on the entrance, and I noticed this is one of the reasons why I had a question. In the top left, you had, number 24 trailer storage in
Mhm.
the top left. How would you get into that parking lot? How would your truck get into there? Would it pull in and back in, or
So
how
this,
does that get in?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, didn't mean to interrupt you. The design of this is to be controlled from the truck court at this location here. This is strictly trailer storage. So when a truck comes in with a load, they come in, they pack up, they offload, and perhaps the dispatcher says, we needed you to drop your trailer for 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is. They enter and exit from this position here, from the truck court. That's the way it's designed. It's not designed for a truck to come in and make this turn to come into the trailer storage area here. It was purposely designed that way, so that because this tenant controls the trailer storage area. They do not want to have other tenants, call it mistakenly, come in here and use this as a trailer storage area. So it's controlled in that manner. That's the way the design is.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm thinking is because if he pulls in, he's gonna have to back in, so is there enough distance between the loading bays and that alleyway for them to get in and out of there?
Yes, so we provided a turn study,
Okay,
and I believe it was in the packet we just
Okay.
submitted.
okay,
If we want additional information, we can provide that to the chair.
yep. I just wanna make sure it's a safe situation getting in, and that road was what, 30 feet wide on the entrance between the curb? No, on the
over here?
turning in, was it 30 feet or something?
I don't want to say
Wanna make
exactly
sure.
without having my eyeballs.
Okay.
Be able to see
I
the,
just wanna double check that, that's all.
Yeah. okay.
I'm just gonna keep going, actually. The
Mhm.
left side, the right side of the site, you have, a couple loading bays on the larger building, the north building, up against that retaining wall, it's called
Mhm.
W1, I believe.
Mhm.
What's that wall? I couldn't find that in the drawings. And what's the height, and will a truck be able to back into that last slot if there's a truck a bay over with that retaining wall? I see you got a little trap rock or something in there, but that's very tight, that's a pinch point.
Understood, Mr. Chairman. So there was a drive-in ramp that we had proposed in here for, it's not for trucks to drive in, it's for forklifts and so forth to come in and out of the yard. And adjacent to that, it'd be the first trailer storage, the first loading position on this building here. This area across here was just trailer storage. There's no trucks to be staged over here on this side. So we had done a study that shows you can pull in here, back in here, and then leave. The condition between the buildings is a retaining wall. Because if you look at, this is, say this, right, this is 262, elevation 262. This building is elevation 262. The truck court is elevation 258, minus 4 feet from the finished floor. But the finished floors here at 262 and 262 drives the elevation of the parking area higher. We're about 263 up here. So we end up with about a 4 or 5 foot retaining wall.
4 or 5 foot
Yeah,
retaining wall.
yeah.
Okay.
And on top of that, it'd be a screen fence.
Okay, I just couldn't find the detail in the drawing, that's why I was looking for it. I don't know if it was in there, if it wasn't, that's all.
It's a great question, Mr. Chairman. We'll add that to the plan
No,
set.
no problem, thank you. I'll just keep going, because we'll just, King Street we're working on. Snow storage. Snow storage for the center section of the loading zone, and it looked a little sparse with the snow storage. Could you show us?
We'll have to follow up with a separate snow storage plan.
Could you?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If we have opportunities to store snow up in this area, although that is the helipad that the applicant's committed to preserving, but there are other opportunities to load and haul this if you get a significant storm, and we'll provide those locations.
Just because we're in a water resource area too, we gotta be careful with our well, which is downstream of that building too, okay?
Understood.
And then, parking spaces, I know you're looking for a waiver in the 213, I think, range. Do you have enough space to put them in if need be? If this.
Yeah, we have not prepared a expansion plan. If you were to do call it a bank plan, which we've called them in the past, we did that for 300. We actually had looked at doing something in this area where we were actually proposing this.
Just want to make sure that there's capabilities of getting the parking in thereafter if this should change hands.
So is the chair looking for a bank plan to demonstrate?
I'll defer to Mike and Gary, but I think we've done it in the past. Just look for something of substance anyways, to make sure you have the capability, right? I mean, I'm not gonna speak on your behalf, but I think we've done that in the past.
Yeah, I think it's come up on separate projects, Mr. Chairman, that if you're asking for a waiver, potentially showing where that can be expanded or added to the site at some point in the future if it determines that the need is there.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, can I follow up on that question?
Sure, go ahead.
Just trying to find the right word, sorry. So, it looks like about 151 spaces that we're asking for a waiver, is that correct? Did I do the math right?
I apologize.
Did I do it wrong?
413 minus 260.
Oh, I thought it was 213, but I could be wrong.
Okay, well, whatever the math is.
Yeah.
I tend to find our parking regulations in certain zones to be really excessive. So I'm curious if they need to find bank spaces for X number of spaces that seem maybe
Reasonable.
excessive.
Yeah.
Is there a reasonable number that we can find if we need to put something on site to look at it? I mean, you're providing us a plan based upon your knowledge of what these types of facilities need for parking, and probably not going to make a building that doesn't have enough parking for your tenants. So I'm assuming that what they're asking for is probably sufficient. But in the future, like you said, Mr. Chairman, should the hands change, what are your options? Or can we just require, obviously they'd have to come back, and if they needed more parking.
Correct.
Yeah, so I just think finding a reasonable number if we're going to ask them to provide additional banked parking versus a significant excess that you likely will never need is my thought.
And we have done that in the past. We just make sure there is a reserve somewhere on site, just in case. And it doesn't have to be the total, it's just a fair share based on the waiver request. Am I correct in saying so? I believe that's what we've done in the past.
We have done that in certain projects, yes.
Okay. That was most of my questions. I appreciate the answers. I know I'll go to the rest of the board. Jay, you have any comments or questions?
Are we gonna get our hands on the traffic the updated traffic at some point? I know we came in on Friday, so.
Yep. Yep, we'll address the traffic. Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, thank you, through the chair. Just to let you know, they did provide a report today, so it's not in your package. You guys don't have that information that they might have elaborated on tonight, because it just came in today. So nothing's been provided to the board at this time for their
Okay.
response. Just want to make that clear.
Okay. And then obviously Beta will, and Gary will have to review it, Mike and whatnot too
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jacqueline will too.
Jacqueline will.
And Jacqueline, yep. Okay. Anybody? Rick? Jen?
Through the chair, just, did you look any further into greater sidewalk connectivity throughout the broader site, along the ring road, access to recreational trails or more connectivity to recreational trails on the site, but then also going out to the street as well, improving that pedestrian experience?
So through the chair, the answer is we did consider it. We were uncomfortable introducing the public into an industrial site of this magnitude. So we did not look any further into adding sidewalks along the ring road, as there's no public trails that extend from the site to the adjacent areas. This is all town land here, but this is a public well protection area here. And obviously you have the pond area up and back here. What we did look at, because we were concerned about, and these industrial areas, there's a liability concern by introducing the public into these facilities because of the use. But what we have looked at is, and we're exploring it currently, is the discussion we had at the last meeting about the sidewalk connection, trying to get some kind of public connectivity along Washington Street. So we are still looking at that. All indications are that something may be able to be done, but it's going to be somewhat invasive into the roadway. We're still exploring that, and we're happy to review that with the board. At the next meeting, we'll have some better concrete answers about what that layout would be, if that can be accomplished. We're studying it now.
Through the chair, I mean, in terms of inviting the public into industrial sites, I mean, there are still people that work here, and it would be nice for them to be able to walk around the site. Is there, I just don't know this because my kids don't go to the charter school, is there ever a time where people are trying to get to the charter school from a pedestrian standpoint from Washington Street, the Washington Street side? I know that certainly truck traffic is regulated and probably vehicular, but does anyone know, and this I guess could go to anybody, if students or parents of students are trying to walk across from neighborhoods off of Washington Street over to the charter school, I just want to be realistic about the safety associated with that, because even though you don't want to invite the public, if they're going to do it anyway, to me it's much more of a safety hazard if they don't have a safe place to walk, or if staff who are working on the site don't have a safe place to walk throughout the site to stay off the same road as trucks if they don't have another option. So, and then regarding the walkways near the buildings, this is kind of minutia at this point, but it just came up on another past project. Your 5-foot sidewalks are right up against the head of the parking spaces. So are you providing curb stops to prevent vehicle overhangs from impeding on the pedestrian ways, specifically at the accessible spots where someone in a wheelchair would need that full kind of width in order to be able to safely and comfortably navigate those walkways? So that's just a question generally with all the buildings, and being mindful at least of those particular moments where someone might have the luxury of squeezing by with the remaining 2 feet. And then, I look forward to seeing your proposal for improving sidewalks on Washington Street.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just take 2 points to perhaps, so we can continue the conversation.
Sure.
They're all great questions. I just want to make sure we call the board's attention to the fact that there is a really called pedestrian access plan through the site that interconnects Building 1, Building 2, and it brings around the pond. So I don't want people to think that there's nothing going on out here. We are introducing this network so that people can walk around. It's almost to your point, Ms. Williams, about getting people to be able to go out and enjoy the site, right? It's just that we're not introducing people throughout
From
across
Washington
property
Street
lines. And so,
all the way to the
correct.
charter
It was intended for employees that come to this property. Regarding the charter school, when we did 300 Financial Park, there was discussion about a sidewalk back then, and the charter school at the time was comfortable not requiring any sidewalks for the sole purpose of the fact that it's all drop-off. There's no children that come from these local area networks, neighborhoods, and walk down through the site to get to the charter school. They're either bused or they're dropped off by their parents. I'm happy to speak with Heather and just get a confirmation from her that situation still exists, but that was always our understanding. And we met with her informally to just let them know that we were doing this, and there weren't any concerns raised, I'm speaking for you, Brendan, about needing something that there's children need to walk through. There was nothing raised at all about it, so.
And just to put, Mr. Chairman, would be happy to discuss with Heather once again, but we did speak with her, I want to say in January, and it was primarily vehicular to Dr. Blaine. So no pedestrians.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the school internally had their own sidewalks for kids anyway, so it's not
They do.
totally deleted, but this specific site had its own sidewalks for the kids as well.
I'm good, all my thoughts were answered, so, thank you.
Yeah, just a quick one, and I know we'll elaborate more at the meeting for the traffic, but can you go to the one where you showed the, where the scored concrete would be for the roadway change?
On
Slide you
King
had.
Street, Washington,
Yeah.
right there.
So, not a traffic engineer, so excuse the question. If you're taking out a raised kind of median, right, and putting in something that's flat to allow trucks that aren't making that turn to cross over, how is that safer? Because you're, and I'm sorry if I'm not understanding, but you're going from something raised that's supposed to move trucks around in an appropriate manner, you're gonna flatten it out, so now they can just come across. So, explain that one to me, because I'm not a traffic engineer, just wanna understand how that works.
Sure, Dan Mills from MDM.
Yep.
So it's still a visual delineator, the contrast in the pavement and the rumble strip. Pavement markings will still be enhanced out there. The island is only so long at the intersection, but we would continue the scored concrete all the way back to where the pavement markings begin, delineating the island.
Not to interrupt, but, so again, if you have scored concrete, a truck is making a turn, they can easily cross over that scored concrete and go into another lane to sufficiently make a turn, is, I guess, my point. Am I understanding
No,
it correctly?
no, I
Or am I
agree.
not understanding
I
it?
mean, I wanted to look at, I have a lot
I
of
mean,
questions.
yeah, I
so
do
wanted
too,
to-
so-
I wanted to look at this
Yeah.
before I started raising them, because obviously it
I
came.
want to hear
yeah.
Mike's comments and
Yeah.
Beta's comments. I want to know if there's a little bit of real estate left over there to open the throat of this up a little bit too.
Yeah, I
For
personally.
road takings, but there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Let them work through it first, and I think we rotate
No, I understand,
back.
I just don't wanna
Yeah.
send them down a path that we're
Oh,
not
no,
gonna be
no,
okay
no,
with, so,
no,
you know.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have Mike and.
Just a little
and
more thought on
Gary.
that one, I think would be appropriate, so.
Yeah, that one's definitely gonna need some help. Yep. But especially based on the amount of truck traffic that they're projecting coming out of there.
Mhm.
Anybody out in Zoom land, you have a question or comment? If you wanna just approach the mic,
Sure.
this
Thank
is
you,
just,
Mr. Chairman. Maureen
we're
Sullivan.
gonna do traffic at a later time, to obviously see it, so just
Okay,
keep it
I
short
have a
and
lot of
sweet.
comments about this. To ask them to put in sidewalks for the community to use, we have so many parks and recreation places in Franklin, we shouldn't be asking them to do that, but by state law, shouldn't there be, if there are walkers in Franklin, shouldn't they be able to have a sidewalk to get to their school? I understand that the charter school has sidewalks within their small little area there, but I saw children, just after that first study was done, walking from the charter school out the driveway past Greenspawn down towards the corner of Union and Washington. 2 boys, one must go to the older session and the other one must be a younger boy. They walk every single day. So to say that there are no walkers that go to that school, that right there is untrue. To do this pond over, to make us feel that you're doing us a good service to do this pond over, and it is, and there is to have all that parking, it should only be people that are working there, parking there, or people that are doing business there. They shouldn't have to provide extra parking for people that want to go and walk around.
No, it's public.
This is a
It's
trucking.
It's private property anyway.
I understand that, but you were asking to be able to walk through there. I don't think it's a safe place for anybody to walk through. And to do that pond, to have your employees use it as a picnic area and stuff. In the paper, I just saw a month ago, opiates found in the trash out there. There's all kinds of, cars going through there all the time. It's not a safe area, so to be able to walk around there or be able to have it, so if people want a choice to walk through there, who would want to walk through a trucking company?
Well, they're gonna have
Just-
cameras on the buildings anyway,
Right.
so, and you'll probably have security driving around the site, so.
Right,
It's
and
not
once this is
intended
done,
for the
it's
public,
just
it's
left.
just for.
Nobody oversees it afterwards,
Yeah.
so
It-
that's
it-
my concern there.
I think what Jen was referring to is just internally, if somebody wanted to go out for a walk that works within the building, they have a safe place to walk amongst the site, that's all.
Yep.
Not intended for public.
Okay, but my point is, there are children that walk to and from school.
Right.
So to be
Well,
able.
they really shouldn't be
I
cut
would-
through there, that was, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Doug? That was the intention.
So you can
was
tell
that-
any child in Massachusetts at a public school that they're not allowed to walk to school?
Well, not if
No.
if it's a drop-off type situation. Obviously, it sounds like these kids are doing it on their own.
Yeah.
They can't control that.
Maybe they don't have a choice, maybe their
Yeah.
parents are working and
But
they.
again, they can't control that. That's the issue.
But it's something to take a peek.
I agree with you, but,
It's not my child,
you can't
and
put them
obviously it's not yours, so.
on the limb for that.
No, I get it. And the intention was to keep the 2 sites separate, and that's why it was going out to Grove Street, that's why it was drop off, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, so I guess moving forward, you got Conservation Commission, you still got responses. Back, no, you want to speak?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we had one other item to discuss with the board regarding the massing concerns that the board had. And that's why John was here. We thought John could present a few slides that.
Yeah, we have,
I apologize, I skipped over.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
We were
please.
moving. That's okay.
we just wanted to.
We just wanted to see you tonight, you didn't have to say anything.
My looks.
Do appreciate it.
So we just wanted, there were some comments at the first planning board meeting about just clarifying what, the existing condition is on site and what we'll be doing, the proposed development we'll be doing. So we prepared these kind of axons just to help illustrate that. So I think to orient yourself, you can see Washington Street has been highlighted, and then there's that arrow showing the entrance to the site that was discussed previously. So, the large portion of the site is taken up by the existing MMC building, which is a 2-story, 180,000 square foot sort of underutilized office building right now that we will be demoing with the proposed project. And that is where a majority of the new plan would be. You can see the Imperial Dade building to the south of the site, which is our neighbor. That's a large freight forwarding logistics facility. And then the Champagne building, which will remain on site. And we would obviously be sort of aligning our new buildings with that. And then some of the other major site features that kind of influenced our proposal was the fire pond and the berm at the entrance. You want to go to the next slide? So this shows our proposed development. I mean, I think you've seen it in plan, but I feel like the axon kind of gives you an idea of what we're trying to do. So you can see The large building, the 220,000 square foot building 1 is obviously, it's a larger footprint than what the MMC building had taken up, but I think we've tried to still respect the major site features. The smaller 69,000 square foot building has been aligned with Champaign, and then we've created this truck court that we talked about that is at sort of a lower level than where you can see the parking to the east of the site. So that would, our intent is that would be one of the major sort of employee pedestrian parking areas. It's separated from the truck court. We talked about the truck access. We tried to keep that as separate from sort of where the employees go and the entrances. You can see from this axon, we've positioned the entrances at some of the more visible corners of the building, and then we've actually, you know, inset those and lowered the height on them to kind of give it a little bit more of a human scale there. And you can see those entrances are that's where like our office program would be, and those are close to the at least for building 1, they're close to the pond, easy access to the walking path and that side of it. So this side was really meant to sort of highlight some of the site features that, you know, we're trying to maintain and we think really help sort of have this proposal blend in with the existing landscape. So obviously the fire pond is a beautiful feature on the site. We are encroaching on it a little more, but we've stayed back as much as we could. We've tried to keep as many of those trees as possible to sort of shield the building from the ring road. The berm on the east side, which I think you've probably seen in some perspectives later on, I don't know if we'll end up going over those. But that berm, right now, really kind of shields the building from Washington Street, and we've tried to keep that as much as possible we're cutting into the back for parking, but the highest point of the grade will remain, and it'll sort of shield some of the building and, more importantly, the truck court from Washington Street and that residential area. And then just other sort of site features, we'll be introducing more landscaped areas within the parking, and we're looking to do permeable pavers at the entrance to help with the area on site. So the goal here is to really create a 21st century modern industrial park that is kind of clean. You can it's easily maneuverable trucks, but safe for pedestrians and safe for the employees, and a place that they'll actually want to work and have some nice amenities.
That's it. I'll talk about these real quick. Just this was the discussion of.
Yeah, I think Nick is online.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So MDLA, our landscape architect, prepared these. Nick is online there.
Sorry, Nick. Are you online?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So for the record, Nick Campanelli with MDLA, landscape architect for the project. So it was requested of us to throw a couple site sections together, just giving an overall sense of scale laterally, vertically, just kind of show how buildings proposed, existing, relate to one another. So let's just start in the center. To John's point earlier, we tried to do an overlay show proposed existing. The dashed line on the bottom section represents the existing building, the MMC building. And where Doug's cursor is right now, that's building 1, the 220,000 square foot structure right there. And as we move left is the loading dock that spans between the two. And then building 2 slightly to the left is 69,000. One thing I do want to point out from an elevation standpoint in this, both buildings 1 and 2 are at the same elevation as 300 Financial Park to the left, elevation 302. That is done intentionally. We obviously don't want to go any taller than the adjacent contextual buildings around it. As we move to the east, as John was pointing out earlier, we've got the existing North Fire Pond and the existing grove of trees that we're looking to maintain as much as possible to act as that shield between the loop entry road and building 1 itself to help break down that long linear facade. There's the existing, we don't have to reiterate this, but we have that loop path around the fire pond. There's an existing overlook within that stand of trees that we're looking to maintain and integrate as part of this loop road. And I think you can highlight that in the plan just to the north, Doug.
Yeah, it's right here. It's hard for me to see it, but I can,
Yep.
it's.
We have a
right-
plan later on too, we can take a look at.
It's in this area.
But
here.
those,
Is the overlook.
yep, exactly. Thanks, Doug. So if we can reference this with any questions, but those are some of the highlights for this north-south section. You can go to the next slide, Doug. So this section is the opposite, running west on the left to east on the right, through direction on this one. I can't see the section on the bottom of my screen. I'm assuming you guys can see the section?
Yep.
Okay. So what this section starts to show is that the western portion of the site sits slightly lower at elevation 257, tight to the building, tight to the west entry of building 1. Whereas on the east side of the property, we're at elevation 262. So there's a 5-foot elevation change side to side on this building. And that explains why on the plan, top northwest corner, we have a raised platform or raised entry patio with a set of stairs that helps transition up to that piece of, that formal office entry. The parking lot itself running west from that entry matches roughly the existing grades that are out there. So going from elevation 257 down to elevation 250 at the loop road. With all of the landscape design just in general, we're trying to reduce as much of the impervious pavement as possible, trying to introduce tree islands where we can. So we're maintaining a lot of the perimeter existing curb lines, but trying to reduce the interior amount of impervious material. And the last thing I want to point out on the right side of this section, bottom right, we have that existing berm, as Doug and John hinted earlier, that separates visually building 1 or the existing building from Washington Street. We're not only looking to maintain that, but we're looking to supplement that and provide additional plantings, additional trees to make that berm a little more robust. So have that as the formal front door, the visual front door to the property, and screen the building beyond it. So with that, I'll turn it back to John. Happy to come back if there's any additional questions.
Thank you, Nick. John, you all set?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's here is you've seen before, it's just,
Yep.
it's the building plans and elevations and design of buildings.
It's helpful to see the comparison of the existing versus the new and how likely is it much of a difference in terms of what you see from the street, especially those added trees. So thank you for providing this.
Sure. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I believe we can conclude our remarks this evening.
All right. Nobody else have any comments? So, Amy, what do you think for our next one on this continuation?
It's totally up to the board. I think it's tight for 2 weeks, although we did get the traffic in today. I'm not sure if that gives me enough time to respond within a week to put the packets together. So it's, if it wasn't the next meeting at August 7th, it'd be August 21st.
Want to go August 21st? I'm not here, I'm on vacation the week of this.
You're on vacation the 7th, and I actually won't be here on the 7th either.
So I guess Willie's in charge.
Willie's in charge.
Plus it gives a little bit of time at Concom, work out some of the logistics with, because I have a funny feeling what you submitted today may take a little bit to divulge and go back and forth, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Can I just confirm?
Sure.
one thing, please?
Maybe just get a little bit more done. That's all.
That'll be fine, Mr. Chairman.
That'll work? We'll be able
21st.
to work through, get a little bit more done and, okay. All right, good, I appreciate it. So I make a motion to continue 100 to 200 Financial Way till August 21st. Do I hear a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody have anything? General business?
Just comment on planning board members. We have 3 open seats come the November election. Well, I hope many of you will run again. Just want to put it out there, if there are seats that are going to be available, to pull your papers on August 1st.
Good point. Also, to the group, the master plan committee started meeting, and we're 2 meetings in, and subcommittees are starting to form and start to meet. So as that starts to gain momentum, we will update you on how it's going.
Yes, through
And
the
we'll
chair.
update you on the day was there. too.
Like,
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your
I
thunder,
don't have
Amy.
to-
I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Amy, if you weren't gonna update.
I don't have to
me.
update you on the Davis Day committee,
Yeah.
so we'll leave
yeah,
that with me.
yeah, so actually, to elaborate on what Jeff was saying, so the master plan committee does have a meeting this Wednesday at 6:30, so we are on Franklin TV and Zoom and live in the training room, so they meet about once a month right now, but then subcommittees will be picking up as well, so hopefully people will join, or watch, or participate.
Always looking for volunteers.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recording stopped.